I'd like to welcome everyone to the Boardable monthly webinar. My name is Caroline Hoy, and I'll be your host today. Boardable is your central location for everything you need to run your board, whether that's meeting planning, task tracking, sharing documents, or other communications. Now you can do it all in one place with Boardable. And I'm inviting you for a special experience. We have some new features, goal tracking and reporting, which are really popular with our customers right now. And if you go to boardable.com, you can sign up for a 14-day free trial and experience those great new features for yourself. Today, I am thrilled to have with me Kelly Velasquez-Hague from OneCause. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Caroline. How are you? Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to talk about ambassador fundraising today and to dive into some of the awesome data that Caroline's going to share before we start talking strategies.
Great. Yes, as Kelly said, we're going to be talking ambassador fundraising today. And part of what got us thinking about this topic was our recent board engagement survey that we conducted. So we're going to unpack some of the statistics today around how board members are involved in fundraising. So before we dig into the survey, first I'd just like to thank the sponsors of the survey this year, OneCause, of course, and you might have heard Stephen Shattuck from Bloomerang on our webinar last month. We've also had Claire Axelrad of Clarification School and Mark Pittman from Concord Leadership Group. I highly encourage you to check out all of the incredible content that these folks provide for the nonprofit industry. It's really powerful stuff. A little quick background on our survey. We anonymously surveyed 640 nonprofit people from November to December of last year. And those were all different roles. We talked to board chairs, board members, staff, consultants, others. Most of those nonprofits were smaller than 20 members, and most of them had an annual budget of under $500,000. Then it was kind of an even split in the $500,000 to $1 million, $1 million to 2.5, and over 2.5 ranges. I would like to add that everyone in this webinar will be receiving a report on the survey results, which we will send you with the replay tomorrow. And then that survey was voluntary on SurveyMonkey and distributed digitally through our sponsors and through our social media and that kind of thing. So what did we find out about board members and fundraising? First, I want to get a little temperature from the audience here. I'm going to start a poll question over here on the side. Do you feel like your board members engage in fundraising as much as they could? So there's some options there. Yes, this is a strong area for us, or maybe we could do a little bit better. When we asked our survey respondents about the weakest area of their board engagement, look right there in the middle. You see fundraising, development, fundraising, board members. Lots of pain points here around getting that board really involved in the fundraising. It looks like on our poll, most people are saying some board members try, but we could do better. If you can see that over there. And then definitely a lot of people saying board engagement and fundraising is a real struggle. So then our next question was, I'm going to ask you all this one too. Do board members open doors and make introductions for fundraising? So let me see how we feel there.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of the week, and good luck with any campaigns and all campaigns and events you're doing this year.
All right. We'll see you next month.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. I know that there's a wide range of responses here. Most of the people were in that dark blue or green category, which was a few board members do the majority of that work. And board members will help if they're asked something very, very specific with a big yellow chunk there of people saying all board members are expected to, but few actually do. And it looks like, judging by the poll that we're running now, you all are feeling about the same way there. 44% said that you're expected to, but very few do. 30% only if the ask is specific. And 24% of you said a few do the majority. Okay, well, that is consistent with our findings. And then the other thing we were curious about, especially as we talk about ambassador fundraising, is in what ways do your board members participate in that fundraising work? I'm going to start another poll here. Make sure you can see the results at the end. So share, and in our poll, I believe they could select more than one of these options, but just to get a general idea, you can see here that most board members, well, half say that their board members will solicit donations on behalf of the organization. A little less say that their board members will share it with their networks. And then our lowest category there is that peer-to-peer fundraising, which is why we're talking to Kelly today. See how we can shore that up a bit. The poll of our audience here, we've got a lot in that don't really help much category. You should be able to see those results over there. And then lots of people who will solicit donations on the organization's behalf. So Kelly, let's talk about how can we get these people, these board members of ours, helping a bit more, especially in that ambassador fundraising realm.
Excellent. I think, based on the survey results and then also based on these polls, I mean, we know, let's be honest, I come from the world of fundraising. I was a director of development for 7 years. I know, Caroline, you come from fundraising too. And all of you on this call, this webinar, this is no surprise. How we engage our boards and finding ways to leverage our board members and keep them connected to the cause actively throughout the year and throughout their tenure. It's a universal challenge for nonprofits. And so one of the interesting things we're going to talk about today is a specific strategy called ambassador fundraising. It's something that we've seen grow over the last year and a half at OneCause, and something I'm excited to share with you today. Just very practical examples of how other nonprofits have engaged their boards and used them to both fundraise and spread awareness through something that, as I said, that we call ambassador fundraising. So let's go ahead and just dive right in.
Beautiful. We need those practical tips.
All right, go ahead and if you can move to the next slide.
Yes, sorry about that. There we go.
All right, so obviously I'm Kelly Velasquez-Hague. Just to give a little bit more background about myself, I've been at OneCause in a variety of roles. My favorite role is this one, where I get to talk to nonprofits about and share industry best practices. What are we seeing out there? What are the new trends? What's working? What's not working? And that's what I do as a VP of Content Marketing and Engagement at OneCause. And before that, as I mentioned, I was a director of development at a school. And whether you're a school or any kind of nonprofit, we are constantly trying to find ways to keep our board members engaged in both our fundraising and do that in a way that didn't sink us as a nonprofit, because there's never enough hours in the day or people on the team. So you got to have strategies that you can put into play that are nimble, that are flexible, and that allow you with teams of any size to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to your board. So we'll dive into that around ambassador fundraising. Caroline, anything you want to say before we kick off?
No, just that I, as you mentioned, have worked in the nonprofit sector. I was an executive director, and I can raise my hand as a yes vote that board member engagement with fundraising is crucial and always a challenge. So I'm excited to hear your advice too.
Great. Let's go ahead and move to the next one. So when we think about boards and we think about fundraising, the old traditional event mentality was this idea of what we call a OneCause limited channel fundraising. I've got 5 hours. And if you haven't figured out, I'm from Chicago based on the sports examples in this slide. But I've got 5 hours or 6 hours or 3 hours, whatever the number of hours for your event, which I can tap into my constituents, my supporters, my volunteers, my board members, my potential donors. And really, I've got a captive audience for a limited amount of time. If we go to the next, there's a new take, this idea that the world of fundraising has changed because the world around it has changed. We've got donors who are engaging as they engage in real life on their mobile phones, on their technology, on their laptops. They're using social media. They're really changing the face of fundraising. So it doesn't necessarily need to just be what can I raise in 5 hours? This whole new world of engagement, digital fundraising really opens up. And what we've seen is that if done right and we engage our boards in ways that make giving and representing their board social, mobile, and fun, particularly social and social fundraising, we can really, truly maximize our board's engagement and find new ways to connect them to our fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm talking about when I say that the trends of the world has changed. We did a research study about a year ago on social donors, those that give to events, those that give to peer-based fundraising. And what we saw was a changing landscape of what donors are expecting and what supporters, those who also support your cause, i.e. your board members, volunteers, and staff, are expecting. The three things that have to come into place now in order to get the most, whether it be from your board members or your donors, is it has to be easy. We have to find ways to connect them continually to our fundraising in a way that's easy. So anytime, anywhere, when the fancy strikes them, even if that's in the Starbucks line, they can engage with your cause. And we found the majority said that they have to understand that connection to the mission. They always have to be reminded, whether they are out there representing and directly fundraising or they're bringing their friends, why are they doing it? Why is it important? And what's that money going to be used for, or that donation? That's incredibly important. And then the third wheel, we're going to talk today about all three of these together, is the social connection. The number one way that today's donors find out about giving opportunities is through their social networks. And so if you think, all of you on this call, close your eyes and think about the composite of your board and how many social connections each of those board members has, and the opportunity to amplify your fundraising by tapping into those social connections. That's where ambassador fundraising will come in. We'll talk about how you can make it fun and easy, how you connect them to your mission, and then how can you really maximize your board by tapping into their social networks and making it easy for them to do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you 3 examples. Before we jump into this, I just want to set the stage. When we say ambassador fundraising, what is it? Ambassador fundraising is when we tap into our most loyal supporters, and we make them direct fundraisers. There's a variety of different ways you can do it. You can make it competitive. You can have them selling tickets, sponsorships. You can have them promoting your event and just getting social reach and awareness. What I'm going to do is give you a few examples of nonprofits who've made this happen. And while not all of them are directly board related, one of them is, you can start to see that you can swap in board members here anytime, any kind of campaign. But really what this will do is give you real life examples and some results of different groups who have used ambassador fundraising to increase their reach and drive more money through their special events, and also achieve that elusive board engagement that we're always looking for.
Yeah, and Kelly, when you and I were prepping for this, I asked you, are these limited to bigger nonprofit organizations? And I thought your answer was interesting on that.
You know, what we're seeing is all shapes and sizes. In fact, this first one that we're going to talk about is what we call, grassroots organization, a small nonprofit. But really, the beauty of ambassador fundraising is its ability to plug and play with nonprofits and events of all sizes, all shapes, and all revenue levels. So let's talk a little bit about this. If we want to go ahead and go to the next, actually, can you back up a little bit, Caroline? Mm-hmm. So this is a group called Shop Sell Strut. They are these 2 lovely women that you see behind the young ambassador with a trophy. They're teenagers. They started their own non-for-profit. Their parents helped them, but we're talking about 2 people trying to change the world. Now, if it wasn't for their age, that's often the thing that most nonprofits are doing. Small shops trying to make a big difference. So what they did is, if we go to the next slide, they decided their ambassadors, again, you could substitute this for board members, were going to be some of their top beauty pageant supporters. So they tapped into these ambassadors and their families and friends, and they created a campaign where they staged an event This was a fashion show, and 30 days leading up to the fashion show, each ambassador was responsible for selling tickets to the event, trying to generate social media awareness. If you look at the overall leaderboard, we have fundraising revenue, we have social media influence, we have recruiting of new ambassadors, and then they each had different activities that they could use to accrue points. And so what they did is had a competition, and whoever was going to create the most reach, the most fundraising effectiveness, recruit the most ambassadors on this leaderboard got the most points, and at the end was crowned the ambassador for Shop Sell Strut. So if we can go to the next slide. On the event night, they held a fashion show, they had guests, they did a silent auction, they had live performances, they had vendor tables, and then at the end, they had their ambassador recognition ceremony where they unveiled the person who had raised the most, touched the most, and generated the most awareness. And with that, if we move over, what they attribute the recipe to success was communication, really involving, in this case, it wasn't a board, but it was their ambassadors, but involving, let's say, a board, communicating with them, telling them what they were doing, having prizes, having some kind of incentive, milestones, badges. The world's changed, and fundraising is no different. Think in your own life in those contests. I know that I do Map My Ride contests with people at work where we're always competing for who did the most calories burned in a month. Those are the ways in which we need to bring gamification into our fundraising, finding new ways to connect donors, finding new ways to connect ambassadors, having wraparound events. They also leveraged giving days in this campaign and had, 24-hour periods where their boards blasted out social media announcements. They had their supporters, in this case, you could do board members, get company matches, really to try to intensify that online giving and then using social media to get out there and promote it. But at the very end of the day, what they did was they created a celebration for their ambassadors. Their event became not just a fundraising platform, but for a platform to engage their supporters. In this case, think about board members, a platform to engage them in something beyond the fundraising and making them a focal point of celebration. And again, thinking about those social networks and social aspect being so important, we have the opportunity to change our fundraising by rethinking the way in which we engage those in our events.
Yeah, it's almost like adding some psychology to, what motivates people and what gets people excited and rewards them and all of that.
Yeah,
so many possibilities.
Think about again, I go back to our everyday lives. What excites us about events in our everyday lives, those things that captivate us, that engage us, that make it social, and mobile and fun. And so bringing that into our fundraising as well, but also tapping into our board members to help them be the catalyst by which you can reach those larger networks.
Mm.
So what this small group of two teenagers do, they had been doing ambassador fundraising for a couple years, but by taking on this new form, using technology in this case to engage their ambassadors, they saw almost close to a 300% increase in participation.
Wow.
Imagine if we could even get 100% increase in participation from our boards. We would probably be jumping up and down.
Game changer, yeah.
Yeah, and these girls are full-time students. One's in college, one's getting ready to go to college. So the ability to be able to do it without a lot of work was important. They saw a 41% increase in event attendance, and then really an 83% increase in donations, silent auction, and the other fundraising activities they had on site. So just for this small event, again, I wanted to start small. They raised $25,472 in a pretty relatively short and compact campaign.
Beautiful.
All right. So I keep talking about social. What's the impact or potential impact of social donors? They're about 25% of the U.S. population. This is based on the survey that we did. That's 58 million potential donors that, if we can get our boards and their networks engaged, are interested in fundraising for our causes if we make it easy, if we make it socially connected and if we continue to broadcast our mission and our impact.
So these are donors who didn't necessarily have a strong connection to the organization previously. It's more of a social connection to someone who is an ambassador for the organization, or?
So in our survey, social donors are defined as anybody who gives to event fundraising or peer-based fundraising, right? And the number one way in which they hear about those are through their friends. Ambassador fundraising being, a key way to get them engaged. I think the thing to note on this is those people that are motivated in social giving, social donors, there's 58 million of them out there.
Wow.
Chances are every single year, one of your board members has, I don't know, a handful, 10, 20, 30, 100 people who fit into this category.
Okay.
All right. The importance of social influence. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. You can always go to our slide because I want to make sure we can get to the examples. But as I said before, people are hearing about events. They're hearing about donation opportunities, 57% of them through a friend, family member, or a colleague. That kind of flips on the head, I think, the way in which a lot of us approach our fundraising. We often think as nonprofits, like, I have to be out there broadcasting. It's all on me to get people to my event. No, don't get me wrong. 26% are still saying the nonprofit has a role of importance in broadcasting. But think about your board and think about, if the majority of social donors are hearing about it through a friend and colleague, how can I tap into my board to make that happen?
Tremendous potential there.
Okay, let's go ahead and skip through this because I think we're a little bit out of order here. But what I want to talk about is give you some more examples about how you can use pre-event fundraising to engage ambassadors, how in the event you can see some of these causes, communicate with them through, gamification and other ways to get the most out of that time you have them captive. And then how you might be able to harness some of this post-event as well. Okay. So let's keep going. Let's go to the next example. Actually, can you back up?
Sorry about that. There we go.
Okay, so Elements Charitable Foundation. This is another one. So we started small. We started with a 2-person teenage nonprofit. Let's talk about what a more formalized hospital board has done and charitable foundation around ambassador fundraising. This group, I love them. They have really taken the concept and run with it. What they've done is they take their signature gala, right? And now, again, when I give you these examples, it doesn't have to be a signature gala. You could plug in golf tournament. You could plug in ladies luncheon. You could plug in, breakfast, community corporate breakfast. But in this case, they took their signature event and they created the black and white ball. They created a competition where they tapped top supporters and board members, in this case, Bells, to raise ticket sales, sponsorship, sell tables, take donations, host small, what they called wraparound events, all leading up to the gala. And then the winner would be crowned that night of the event.
It's really creative. There's so many components there.
Yeah. So what they did is, as I said, they tapped these ambassadors, and this is about their 3rd or 4th year doing it. They've created their own mania around who's going to be tapped to be the belle of the ball. Now, taking something that we have traditionally thought as this horrible onus on our board members and turning it into something fun, something that becomes a social status, something that elevates the role of fundraising. And each of their ambassadors has a personal fundraising page. Each of their ambassadors, under their pictures, is explaining again the mission, the impact, why. Why am I fundraising? Why am I excited to do this? And each one of these also has real-time updates to what they're raising. So we think back to that survey question of, my board really doesn't do it, or they do it when I ask. This is a way to ask in a very specific way, but make it fun. So Alamance goes all out in all of their promotion materials, whether it's online or it's in their printed materials. And I know a lot of nonprofits are still using print, which is great. They branded this. They made sure the face of those board members, the face of those ambassadors was in every publication. Again, humanizing the ambassador, humanizing the fundraising, and also it's a great way to engage those networks as these then ambassadors themselves go out and blast it on their Facebook, blast it on their Instagram, blast it in their email, just getting the word out there so that their networks become connected to the cause. They also did something that was super neat. Now, I know the small nonprofits out here are like, well, maybe all nonprofits are like, whoa, I can barely focus on my one event. The beauty of ambassador fundraising is that the onus is on the ambassadors themselves. And so these ladies, these belles, as part of a way to even drum up more support, more new people, more revenue for the cause, they held a bunch of wraparound events. This was, Christy had a hair fairy party where she had hair wrapping. We had cocktail parties. They have luncheons, you name it. They really then use these because one of the, I think the things that board members are often like, I just feel weird asking my friends. I'm not sure how to ask them to give directly. So these women created social events focused on fundraising that then got those new people so excited to help them continue what they were doing that they came to the large gala event themselves. At every single one of these events, they promoted ticket sales, they generated fundraising, they generated excitement and revenue. And ultimately that translated into a huge win for both the Bells themselves and Alamance Charitable Foundation.
That's a really smart way to sort of amplify what you're already doing, is having some accompanying events that support the goal there.
Yep. They also created a lot of recognition and competition around their ambassador fundraising using leaderboards, messaging, built-in recognition, milestone communications. Again, gamification, right? Who doesn't love to get some kind of reward or badge for hitting a certain kind of fundraising level? They really leverage this as a way to continue momentum. I think especially when it involves our board members, we have to find ways that outside of the initial kickoff, we continue to sustain them and encourage them and motivate them to do more.
Makes sense. Again, that psychology piece there.
Yeah, this is an actual real life photo of the winning bell. And again, they had fundraised for about 45 days leading up to the event, ticket sales, sponsorships, donations, wraparound events. And then at the event, I mean, you see the joy on this board member's face.
Oh yeah, she's so excited.
So excited. And so was the community surrounding her excited. So again, turning and flipping around this idea of making of fundraising being a hassle and turning into something that's a joy. All right. And I'll go back to Alamance real quick. The stats on this one are astounding. They have seen 146% increase in their fundraising since using ambassador fundraising and Belle of the Ball. The engagement has been off the charts, also triple digit. The ability to take something that is a gala that we all struggle to figure out how do we change it up every year, and not only bring in board engagement, but bring in something that keeps that event itself alive and the fundraising streams with it, continuing to grow year after year.
That's amazing. Okay,
I'm going to take another one, a school. I am hopeful that we have a lot of schools out here who are doing fundraising. This is a small private school in Iowa. Again, you could do this in New York City. You could do this in LA. You could do it in Des Moines. You can do it in Little Rock. You can do it anywhere. But we all have boards. We all have alumni. We all are trying to find different ways to engage those constituents in our fundraising. And so Des Moines Christian School, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yes, let me do.
Wanted to combine their event fundraising and their board members with a huge push to basically double digit their annual fund and their annual campaign. So they married their annual event with their ambassadors, and they chose also not just board members, but prominent people who and families as well to fundraise before the event. We're talking 5 families here, not a
Wow.
lot, right? But what they did was, if you see this personal page for the Elliot and Kelly Frey, is they talked about why they were doing and why it was important. Each one of these families picked a different scholarship fund to associate themselves with, to bring attention to the different areas of the school that were important to them and then important to the school to fundraise. And they went out there, they hit their social networks, they used social media, they used email, they talked about why it was important for them, why it was important for the school. And they brought so much momentum that if we go to the next slide, on the night of the gala, we're not looking at here, look at the size of this room. We're looking at a pretty medium-sized gala.
Is that a gym too?
That's a gym.
Like?
That's a Des Moines Christian gym. We had actually the Kristen Phillips, who orchestrated this, director of development, spoke at our Raise annual fundraising conference last September. And the room fell silent when she spoke, because these 5 people who fundraised before the event, the original goal was, $200,000 for the entire campaign. These 5 people get up there, they start talking to the audience about why they're passionate, why they did what they did, how they engage their networks and what those causes and scholarship funds that they were supporting. And you could have heard a pin drop. What happened next was absolutely, truly amazing. After they got up there and they told their story, they started their live appeal. Again, we're taking our most ardent supporters, our board members. We've turned them into active fundraisers. And they absolutely catapulted their fundraising into success. I'm just going to pull up their final stats. So if you want to go ahead and go. I think, we probably need one more. Okay, here were their results. In these 5 couples, told their story, and at the end, the entire audience started giving $5, $5,000, $20, $100. The whole entire room participated. At the end of the event, they raised $405,000.
Wow.
This is not a huge school, but this is a school that took this idea of ambassador fundraising, used those board members, those ardent supporters, created passion, and then found a way to replicate that through the social networks and the networks of the people at the event. They've surpassed their fundraising goal by 62%.
Wow. We would all be jumping for joy with those kinds of results.
I mean, again, so, given you the idea of the small nonprofit, the big charitable board, the school, let's talk about our next nonprofit. I think, there we go. The Shed. This is a true board fundraiser as well. This was 100% board ambassadors. This is a young professionals board in the city of Chicago. Boards are hard to engage no matter what age level they are, but young professionals find their own challenges because they're busy, they've got social lives, they're doing a bunch of things. Shed wanted a way to bring visibility to this event that they did with their young professional board and increase their reach and raise more revenue, at the same time building board engagement. So each board member at Shed has what's called a give get, which is pretty standard in board fundraising. You either go get money or you give it. And so they decided to use ambassador fundraising to allow the board members to fund or work towards their give get annual commitment. So the ambassadors were their 46 board members. Some had been brand new to the cause. Some had been there for years. They got them excited. They launched picked each one of them, gave them their own personal fundraising pages, and set them loose before the Out of the Blue event to raise funds for the cause and to promote the event itself.
And those fundraising pages you're talking about, are those through OneCause?
Yeah, they're through OneCause. There are other platforms out there that have them. You could also look at different social media platforms, but we have a product that's built specifically for ambassador fundraising. Okay, I love this group because, they got super creative. They wanted to be 100% about their board. They wanted their board to feel the ownership of this event. They wanted their board to feel engaged and active outside of just going and getting auction items. So as I said, they gave their give get. They also gave each of them a social media toolkit. They helped each board member craft personal mission statements about, again, remember that Venn diagram at the beginning, that intersection of mission and impact with social fundraising. They helped each of them craft personal mission statements that explained why they were fundraising so that it would engage their personal networks. They used video. We're seeing video really come to the forefront of a lot of nonprofits these days, and they put that at the center with little videos about the different animals and species that they supported. And they used a variety of rewards. And I think that this is important because you know your boards better than anybody. If you're going to take on ambassador fundraising, don't just make it about the money. Make it also about the social reach and the awareness. And through our product, you can reward and gamify how many times people's things are liked and shared and responded to on social media. But make engaging social networks part of it, because if you do that, the proceeds will come. If you can get them really out there talking, actively promoting and using social platforms, people will be drawn into your event.
I really like that personal mission statement piece because that seems like something we hear from our webinar guests and other experts over and over is board members want more tools to talk about, the nonprofit and what the fundraising is for, and just being familiar with that language is so helpful.
And then I think to bring it down onto a personal level, why do each of us fundraise? Why is this cause important to me? Me, Kelly, you, Caroline. We see this as directly, it's big in peer-to-peer. If you do a lot of, Relay for Life or team-based fundraising, you'll see personal mission statements in the peer-to-peer fundraising realm be central. And what we're seeing is nonprofits bringing that also over into their signature event fundraising.
Okay.
All right. They were 104% to goal. They raised $31,000 through ticket sales. They saw 324 people who donated socially. They donated through this campaign who hadn't donated before. They also saw a total of 220 individual donations.
That's so exciting about the new donors because, as we all hear all the time, it's much easier to keep an existing donor than to get a new one. And so to net that many in one night is a huge opportunity.
And I also think if you look at that last stat over there on the bottom left, and we're talking today about the board surveys that tell us how a challenge it is to get our boards engaged in our fundraising, they got 61 of their board members, 61 young professional board members to actively fundraise for the cause. That's almost 100% board participation. I think most of us would look to be happy with a 50 to 60% board participation. But again, if we find these ways to craft fundraising strategies within existing events we already have, we have a natural platform by which to engage our board members.
All right. That's an interesting project for a young professionals board. I do feel like there's so much enthusiasm there. If you could kind of harness that with especially ambassador fundraising, they could really do a lot.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't necessarily have to just translate into young professionals. Like if you think about the composite makeup of most of our board members, think about their business and the social networks that come with them.
True.
There's naturally a whole new group of donors we could be reaching if we engage our board members to become ambassadors and fundraise for the cause.
Okay.
All right. So I do this ambassador fundraising webinar and presentations at different conferences, and I get asked, okay, where do I start? This is really great. I'll also say you visit OneCause.com, search on ambassador. We have ebooks, we have testimonials, we have success stories. We've got campaign how-tos. But when you do it, if you're going to take it on, design a program that's right for you. Ask yourself and sit down and say, okay, here's my board. Here's the type of board members that I have. Here's the type of event that I have. What makes the most sense? Is it a competition? Is it simply a sponsorship raise? Is it all of the above? But you have the opportunity with ambassador fundraising to design a campaign, a competition that makes sense for your nonprofit. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but just make sure you're very clear about what you want to do. Choose the right technology. I get asked this a lot. Do I have to have a technology? No, we all still fundraise without technology. There are a lot of nonprofits doing out there. I'll tell you, it'll make it easier. It'll make it better to get your reach, and it will drive more results. So if you're looking for a technology, make sure that it has built-in social media integration. Make sure that your ambassadors can just click a button and post on Facebook. They can click here and send an email. They can click here and go to Instagram. Because that's where you get the most reach, is when you're using social media networks to do direct solicitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would add, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just throw in there, everyone, please feel free to enter your questions in that chat area. We're getting a lot of questions, and one of them is about, is this just for live events? What if your nonprofit doesn't have, I don't know, are these techniques something that they could do for like a online event, for example? Or?
Yeah, totally. So we call those virtual campaigns. Mm-hmm. So you can absolutely extend this to virtual campaigns. You're getting into kind of what's the realm of peer-to-peer, but it absolutely applies to ambassador fundraising. We have a group, it's on our website, the Indianapolis Children's Choir. They did a sing-a-thon. And they got their ambassadors, they tapped teams and individuals, and they held a sing-a-thon event, which had, you're actually singing on a stage somewhere, but they live broadcasted on Facebook. They just created a live Facebook event. And that way they could create a virtual atmosphere for people all around who wanted to participate. You could do that and have 100% virtual. Pick 5 ambassadors, have some kind of giving campaign, and try to galvanize support in a short amount of time, and have some kind of virtual led competition. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you for answering that.
All right. I'll cruise through these because I want to make sure we have a chance to answer questions. This is number 3 bullet, but in my mind, number 1 priority is choosing the right ambassadors. Again, we have an ebook that talks about what you look for, but find those people that are truly passionate about your cause. Just because they have a large social network doesn't necessarily mean they're the right ambassador. It helps. It really does, because they have 1,000 people following them on Instagram. But they need to have some sort of connection with your cause. Think about it. If you were going to go ask for people to join you, it would want to be, you're going to come through as most authentic when you're representing those things that you care the most about. So I look for passion over social networks any day. Mm-hmm. In fact, the belle of the ball at Alamance, she never even had a Facebook page before she started her campaign, and she raised the most amount of funds.
Oh, that's good to know. We've had some questions come in about those less tech-savvy board members and how they can be successful with this.
Would you like me to answer that now, or do you want me to wait until the questions?
We'll wait and get to that at the end. I'll let you go through these best practices first.
Okay, great. So endear, empower, and mentor. The one thing that ambassadors, they need a little bit of they need a framework, and they need a little bit of confidence building, especially as you mentioned, the non-tech savvy ones. Just a little bit of confidence building to get them out of the nest. But once you do that, and you empower them to tell their story, to touch their friends, to make appeals, and you touch in with them. I'll take Katie Boone at Alamance Charitable Foundation. She's touching in with her ambassadors, not necessarily setting up meetings, but just saying, hey, how's it going? What's working? What's not? What are your challenges? And then also using the ambassador network themselves. That's what Des Moines did, to help them answer each other's questions. But if you do this, just make sure that you spend time with your ambassadors. Like any good event, any good campaign, you can't just launch it and walk away. Mm-hmm. You need to be there, and you need to stay engaged to help your ambassadors succeed. And then ultimately build a tradition. commit to it. Commit to 1 year and then use that as the building block for year 2. We're seeing year 1 astronomical results, but really the fruits of the labor taking off even further in year 2 and some of these year 3 campaigns.
Yeah, it's almost like you've set an expectation or something to look forward to in their community, so people are expecting it each year.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that too, do get a lot of questions of, well, what if we have a biannual event? That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't roll yourself out. You're just going to do it every other year.
Yeah, that gives people a little rest in between there. Okay. All right. Well, as I said, please go ahead and enter those questions in the chat area. While you're doing that, I have a couple exciting things to tell you about. First of all, everyone who took our survey was entered for a chance to win one of 2 iPads. And if those 2 lucky winners that I randomly drew this morning using a algorithm software that does that for us, if they're not on this webinar, of course, we're going to email them. But Kelly, I wanted you to read out those 2 names in case they're listening right now.
Caroline, I'm going to have to defer to you because we did the webinar best practice of shutting down our email.
Oh, yeah, so you don't have it handy.
I don't have it handy, but I will do the drum roll for you.
Yes, please. All right, congratulations to Rick Wayman and Regina Ridley. You have both won an iPad from Boardable for filling out our survey, so thank you for that. And as I said earlier, everyone in this webinar will also receive a copy of our survey report with all of the results in it. I'd also like to tell you about our next webinar coming up next month. This is with Kim Donahue, who's our resident board governance coach, and we're going to be talking about advanced meeting engagement. We're all about board engagement here, so how can we conduct the best board meetings ever? Learn how to make your next board meeting the most productive one yet. She loves to talk tips and tricks for those problem board members, the seat fillers, the people who don't say anything, and then the ones that maybe say a little too much. So join us next month for that on February 19th, and you'll see a registration link for that in your replay as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get to some of these questions. One of the ones that came up, if you could just define one more time what a social donor is. We've had a couple people wondering what the difference is between a social donor and just a normal donor, or...
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, we'll follow up with a link to our ambassador fundraising ebook. I'll also make sure we include a link to our social donor research study. But social donors are defined as anybody who gives or had given in the last 12 months to an event or ticketed fundraiser, a peer-to-peer based fundraiser, or what we consider to be like an occasion challenge fundraiser. So those people that give to, think about galas, events, peer-to-peer events, anything where we're bringing in event fundraising and social connections.
Okay, so they've heard about this event through a connection and they're participating in a specific fundraising event that you're hosting.
Event or campaign, right?
Or campaign.
Could be a gala, could be a golf outing. It could be me spitting up my birthday page and saying, hey, come and donate money to the Paws Humane Society.
Okay, so people giving because of a social connection. Great. Okay, this one we touched on a little bit. Corey asks, we're a national organization and do not do galas or events. Does ambassadorship have to be related to a live event? Well, we've got those great online campaigns and things that we can apply this to.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of ambassador fundraising. I focused this one on events, but you could do a whole webinar on ambassador fundraising around virtual campaigns or virtual fundraising. Absolutely. Giving Tuesday, giving days, awareness days, challenges. There's a group out there called Well Aware. They do something called Shower Strike, where their ambassadors don't shower for a week until they reach their fundraising goal. And they've gotten so creative. I check them out. They're amazing. But you don't have to be around a live event. You can get super creative in how you leverage your ambassadors.
Yeah. Would you call the ice bucket challenge almost something like that, where it becomes viral of people?
Yeah, I think as long as you're intentional about engaging your board or your ambassadors and you're using a
Hmm.
set group, that would be how I would define ambassador fundraising versus viral campaigns. Ambassadors are tapping a few people to be the ambassadors for fundraising for your cause
Hmm.
versus taking your awareness and just mass spreading it out.
Hmm. And then just piggybacking on that, Renee says, what if you have board members that say they don't like events, especially traditional galas? Well, as you mentioned, it could be a golf outing, it could be a breakfast, it could
Yeah, it can
be,
be a breakfast. It could be, again, this goes back, and this is a great question, Renee, because board members are definitely, if anything, have their ideas of what they like and may not be motivated to do. So I think your challenge, and which is why I put it on the as a first bullet point, is to design a campaign or an ambassador challenge or an event that fits with your cause. And if that's not live events, and you can find another way, a corporate challenge where they all have the backing of their businesses. I'm making this up now. And their businesses allow them to go and fundraise on their behalf. You can do that as well. We do that at our company. It's called Indie Tech Gives. And we all go and fundraise, compete against each other as
yeah,
departments.
Boardable took part in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Boardable took part in it too. We had 5 companies who went, and we all engaged our networks. We raised money for Riley Children's. I'm not sure, what did you raise money for, Caroline? Do you remember?
We did for the United Way of Central
Mhm.
Indiana, was one of our first customers ever that we built our product around.
Yep. So you can find ways like that to engage your board members without being an event focused.
Yes. Okay, and then sort of also relational, I guess we touched on this one a little bit, but is there a generational gap in ambassador fundraising? Kate has this question. My board is older and a lot aren't on social media. Can you provide more examples relative to that?
Yeah, sure. So that's where I think you can look at Elements Charitable Foundation and the average age of their bells. They were not all skewing down to millennials and Gen Zs. You definitely had boomers in there. You definitely have, my Gen X generation in there. You don't have to be tech savvy, but what you do have to have is the commitment from your nonprofit that if you don't have tech savvy people, that you either have social media toolkits or you have some kind of training by which you can explain to them what they need to do. In the case of Alamance Charitable Foundation, their bell had never even had a Facebook page and was able to get it up and end up, crushing the competition.
I love that. She just had that many friends, apparently.
Yep.
Okay, and then I think this question is in reference to elements, but Anne Camille asked, how much more money did that hospital raise with the ambassador method over previous events?
That's a great question. And I would say that it was in the 146 percentile range. I'm seeing if I can pull it up right now. But I want to say Alamance raised, it was like 146% growth in their fundraising because of ambassadors. But give me just a sec to see if I can find that anywhere. If not, you can go to our website and just input Alamance Charitable Foundation, and their results will come up. But it was definitely triple digits.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, and then one other question from Anne Camille is this expensive, and how do you convince board members to invest in the cost of fundraising? That could be a whole other webinar too.
I think, a whole nother webinar. I mean, is it expensive? Technology does cost money. I think, it's comparable with out there with mobile bidding and other solutions. I mean, again, feel free to check out our website. I don't want to turn this necessarily into the infomercial, but I would say it's comparable. And if you look at it to the percentage increase that you can get out of it, you should be able to justify for your board pretty confidently that it will more than pay for itself.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Deborah asked, can each board member be expected to personally donate? I don't know if she's speaking to like the board commitment there that each board member has or what that one is about exactly. But You were talking about the some nonprofits using ambassador fundraising as a portion of that board contribution.
Yeah, I've seen them do give gets, right? So you don't have to just limit it to street donations. If this is what the question is around, you could say if they went out and got $1,000 auction item donated, that was a trip, you could count that towards their fundraising proceeds as well.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to real quick the question on Alamance. So I have the stats on there. They raised $144,000 from ambassador fundraising. That was $74,000 more than the original goal. And the amount raised by the top bell was close to $50,000, $48,000. They saw 924 donations and 232 additional tickets and sponsorship sales.
Wow. That is definitely paying for itself in the investment then, huh? Amazing. Okay. Karen asks, this might be something we should take offline. Is there something I can use to train volunteers to use the OneCause app?
Yeah, if you want to share Karen's email with me after, we can get her in touch with, we have a ton of resources.
Okay, great. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I think we've answered everybody here in this chat area.